G'day, folks. AOS Coach here, and we are talking all things Orruk Warclans, specifically our savage, big boss, crazy wargog profiting. Look, your monster hunters. I'm here with the king of bumbags himself. It is the wargog prophet, Mikey Gilson, straight out of the Bucks Wargaming Collective. Knows one of my oldest and dearest friends, too, I found out. Literally drops this bomb just before we go live. So shout out to my good mate, Dave McElroy, king of the Dark Elves, and more importantly, absolute legend. That is Bret Hart. He knows what I'm talking about. But I'm here with Mikey, and we're obviously going to talk Orruk Warclans. We're talking Bonesplitterz, and it's interesting because I was saying to Mikey just before we went live, and we'll get Mikey to introduce himself in a second, but the context I want to put here is that it's 9 months since Age of Sigmar 3 came out. 9 months since the third edition book came out for the Orruk Warclans. And I remember, Mikey, going through this book, and I'm previewing the Orruk Warclans book, and I'm like, right, Iron Jaws look pretty sweet. Crew Boys look pretty sweet. Big War, it's been toned down a little bit, but it's all right. And I'm going through my General's Handbook going, right, it's the monster meta. You have all those things that like to hunt monsters. Bonesplitterz, this is the time to be the Bonesplitterz. And I was so disappointed. So this is the context of the show, is that Mikey has done incredibly well, and a few people in the last couple of months have started to do quite well with Bonesplitterz. So I want to know what's going on. What's the secret sauce? And there's certainly a pink elephant in the room, and that is a 720-point pink elephant that got an updated war scroll in the winter FAQ. Before we get into that, Mikey, g'day, welcome. Introduce yourself to the net.
Hey, Coach. Yeah, nice to have me on. Yeah, so I'm part of Bucks Wargaming Group. I love all the naked boys running around on their ball boys. Can't get enough of the laser eyes. It's the best mini game that you can have in Warhammer. And just even if you're shooting off, big monsters, everyone's cheering on the table. People love it.
It's such a funny book, because when I looked at Bonesplitterz, like, I honestly wasn't impressed with the rules. And then when the book actually hit the shelves and people like you picked up the book, most people were just so sad about their Bonesplitterz. They were looking at it going, it seemed like your Arrow Boys, your like, everyone just kind of seemed like it got a nerf. And I don't know if that was just like sticker shock, but I guess we're going to unpack a little bit about what's going on with the Savage Boys. Is something changed in the last couple of months that's made them more attractive, or have we finally unlocked the secret sauce?
Well, I think let's go back to when the book dropped. I think all 8 of us who play Bonesplitterz across the world were pretty gutted about it. We felt like we'd lost a lot of the things that we loved about the faction. You had the big stabbers. Basically, it seemed like the rules had been written to rule them out of being, the power unit that they were in the one before. The Wardock, who was one of the best, I'd say he was value at 80 points, being, even before he was a priest, he had his dances, he had utility, and now you had to lose your spell in order to do the dances.
And he lost the priest keyword. I remember. That's right. Yeah. I remember getting the book for a Games Workshop preview, and I'd asked the Bonesplitter people in my Discord, I'm like, what do you want to know? And what should I incorporate in the video? And they're like, does the Wardock still have the priest keyword? Because there was a few people brewing ideas with curse, and it lost it.
Yeah, there's no way to get curse from the Bonesplitterz faction. Gits don't have it, or them, and you're ruling out one of the most powerful things that we had in our armory, which was Arrow Boys, blocking out the sun with curse on them.
So talk to me about where Bonesplitterz are currently in the meta, just because it did, and I don't want to paint doom and gloom, because it's not completely doom and gloom. But I want to paint the picture of how they're struggling, or where they're struggling, or what has changed since they used to be able to. And I remember the days in first edition where you'd have 30 Arrow Boys, you'd roll all of the dice, you would have exploding sixes, you would just re-roll them all, and it was just a terrible, terrible I hated playing against you. Not
Yeah,
you personally,
yeah.
Mikey, but it was never fun because there was just so many re-rolls and so many exploding sixes.
Yeah, so where we're at the meta at the moment, I think the elephant that you mentioned, Kragnos, unlocks a lot of things for a lot of factions, and it brings the power level up for a lot of the armies that were sitting at the bottom of the table, because he offers a way to get battle tactics, the threat that he's got, and the board presence. He starts making your opponent make more decisions and more choices. I would say with Bonesplitterz, if you make mistakes, you get found out pretty quickly, and that's the case when you play any sort of lower faction army. You have to play perfect in order to get the results. It feels you're punished hard when you make a mistake. Having I think Bonesplitterz, they don't compete and trade in the same way that they used to. So getting into combat is actually something that you usually try and avoid. And the no rend across the army, and having easy access to +1 save for all units, just really limits the damage output that you've got there. And Kragnos supplements that by being able to get through some units.
Yeah, I think that was kind of one of my disappointments when they had changed the big stabbers, because I thought, right, this is the perfect time to be doing all of the damage. Is it high mortal wounds or high rend? I remember there was just some interesting, cool rules, and then they'd obviously removed a fair few of those monster hunting things, which I felt kind of really hurt the faction. And then it kind of led a lot of people to start thinking about, is it the Wargog Prophet with the mask? It seemed like everyone just wanted to spam all the mask attacks, do all the mortal wounds, and just hope that Gorka Mork blessed them and they would just keep rolling those mortals.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the war scroll that just stands out, because if you get within 12 of him, you have this unlimited damage basically, and you're putting this 12-inch circle around the Wargogs, and basically you're saying, I dare you to go in there, and we could potentially kill anything that you put there. And so it gives you such good board presence, and control, because you're making someone think, do I want to risk putting my model in that range because I could potentially get blown up? When it comes down to it, you usually end up blowing your own head up, but it's the threat that's there, and so having multiple units running around together. One thing that Calvin, I think, points out in his article on the plastic crackers, the first roll is free as well. So actually, a lot of people are forgetting that, and so if you've got multiple ones together, the likelihood of just chipping off little heroes and things like that is actually really easy. And shout out to Will from the Bonesplitterz group, who's 2-1 with 5 Wargogs at the moment in the Kent GT after day 1. So yeah, he was lasering eyes some dragons yesterday.
So between you, Calvin, and Mikey as well. So you, Calvin, and so who was the other one?
That was Will, and then we got Lewis
Will.
as well in Scotland. Yeah,
it seems like most of the Bonesplitterz players are coming out of the UK. I don't know what maybe you're a part of the secret meta that's coming up, America. We got to watch out. We got to learn from the UK folks.
Yeah, I think we've got a really tight WhatsApp group where we throw around some ideas. It was pretty quiet when the book dropped, or pretty angry when the book dropped, as I said. But it's got to a good place now, and I think our friend Plastic Crack driving it on the blog has really reignited people's love for it. It certainly got me sort of turned around and looking back at my collection, thinking, no, I'm not going to go with the easy option just to go straight with Ironjaws. I think there's more play here with Bonesplitterz.
So what are Bonesplitterz good at? Let's imagine I'm new to the faction, or maybe I played Bonesplitterz back in the day and I haven't touched my Savage Boys for a long time. In 3rd edition, what do they bring to the table?
So they bring a lot of control of board presence. They have a pre-game move with half of their units, and this is really key. You can either screen out your better units by moving up the board early, They've got really good movement. All of the things on, you've got your ball boys who are 12-inch move, so they're getting around the place. Then their faction ability is a 4-up after save at one point in the combat. So they've got quite good denial of battle tactics, and so they play at more of a denial game and good at getting early up on points. You can squeeze people in their own territory with the fast movement, and then get ahead and stay ahead, and sort of hold on. Basically, that's how they work.
I guess the reverse would that be then? What are you not good at?
Okay, yeah. Well, if you take
you comes with a war scroll, like it's just going to roll out forever.
You've got limited access to pluses to magic, where with you can do with the war dog, but you have to roll a 3-up there. I think you've got lack of rend across there, and you do have the rogue idol as a monster, and this is where Kragnos comes in. You've got a monster with rend, and you've suddenly got something that complements, one of the weakest things in the faction. I would say our shooting's pretty pointless now. Which
is ironic because it used to be one of the big things you that was what you were known for. You were known for shooting, and you were known for big stabbers.
Yeah, which is the rend and the shooting. And so, yeah, the Arrow Boys at the moment, you can't get. They've written out the rules to get those exploding 6s. The +1 to wound spell won't go on the Arrow Boys as well. And I think it's probably going back to that play experience that you had. We didn't want people coming out with buckets of dice and sitting there for 5 minutes and just telling you to take your toys off after a while.
Only 5 minutes. I'll never forget my first game against Bonesplitterz at my first Age of Sigmar tournament. My opponent, God bless him, he ran Bonesplitterz because his games club convinced him to do it. He had an assistant. He literally had an assistant with me, and they sat there together, rolling the dice, re-rolling, picking up the 6s. That one shooting attack, I swear it took 10 years. And I think we only barely got through turn 3. It was a crazy experience, and I'm glad they've kind of tightened it up. But through that, they seem to have lost a lot of power projection. And at the time, the melee-focused orcs just weren't cutting the mustard.
Yeah, I mean, for monsters, they had a routine to kill the monsters. Basically, you had the mortal wounds on 6s, and you had a weight of attacks. And so, yeah, you would be chipping off the monsters. You also had play with the 6-inch parlin as well for objectives. But obviously, that went by the wayside, which we were pretty sad about.
Oh my God, there's a big laundry list of things that you're not good at and limitations. So why on earth would anyone want to play with on hard mode? No, it's not even hard mode. It's like, what's the mode harder than hard mode? It's like advanced mode, crazy low mode.
God mode, yeah. I
was going to call it God mode. I didn't want anyone to assume that God mode meant easy mode. No, it's like fight with one hand behind your back mode.
Yeah, you have to bring in a god to compete. I think that's part of it.
So, and I think one other thing as well was, Hades has been in the chat, like cheerleading the Rogue Idol. That seemed to be quite popular as well, quite early on, doing double Rogue Idols in the Alpha Beast pack to get that free move, and then you hopefully get the spell off and all that good stuff. But get that into combat early.
Yeah, I think the Rogue Idol it opens up it gets the monster keyword in there. It's got the 5-up ward. It's quite expensive, at 430, I think, points for what it is. You've only got 2 attacks on the big attack, and it's D6 damage, which isn't reliable. And then if you run against like Seraphon, you hit your -1 damage on that, and again, I think the play style is not actually to get in combat; it's to control the board, and that's I think having the Rogue Idol, it works against that because you don't want to. If you're charging 2 in, you're using up half your points early in the game, and you're not gonna table someone with Bonesplitterz. and so you got to hold on, and you've got to play the objective game, and if you're getting to turn 4, turn 5, and you've got nothing left on the board, you're not going to be able to hold on because you won't have tabled them, and they would have tabled you.
Yeah, what one seemed to work quite well because if you were lucky to get the double fly or the triple fly movement, like if you get I actually did face I remember played a game against a guy called Corey, I think it was, and he got the triple, right? I think if you get the spell off, you can move and all the shenanigans. But if you roll, was it a 10 up or something high? I can't remember exactly how it works, but you can triple the movement. So it meant the rogue idol was moved like 32 or 38 or something bonkers, and it can fly. So there's like literally no way you can screen. And this rogue idol's just in your face, smashing whatever it wants to smash. That is powerful. When you start adding a second one and you can't get that delivery mechanism on 2, I think you raise an interesting point. Thus, the introduction of Kragnos, the Ender of Empires. But before we get into that, Mikey, are you going to say something?
Well, yeah,
I was going to the rules in a second. I'm going to bring up the rules. So
so I was just going to say that the double move or triple move and fly, that's AOS 2. That's old book. So we lost that. Yeah. So this is one of the things that it used to be the best thing to see, as an opponent or player, seeing a big pile of rocks fly across the table. Turn 1 and go wherever it wants, because it's quite a small base actually. The rogue idol, so it's fairly easy to put in. But we lost that completely.
He's gonna kick in the gonads, like you got kicked everywhere. So I want to talk about the rules here. Okay, so I've got your Bonesplitterz rules, and spoiler alert, Mikey has run the Icebone sub-allegiance. So you got a couple of good sub-allegiances. I think we all know why you've gone Icebone, but talk me through a little bit about the Bonesplitterz allegiance, because I guess the temptation as well could be is I could take literally exact same models and I could run them as Big War. Like if I run a Big War, I don't need to actually take anything different. I don't have to take any Cruel Boys. I don't take any Ironjaws. So what is it about the Bonesplitterz allegiance abilities and sub-allegiance on why you play with them? And then also how do you build around it?
Okay, well, let's start with the sub-allegiances. So I've picked Icebone, which unlocks the Boar Boys as battle line. They're, I think, for 140 points, they're a really strong unit. They've got 12-inch move, they've got a 5-up save, they've got 25 attacks for 5 of them. And with this Icebone, you can see on a 6 to wound, you're doing mortals, and so you unlock some damage basically with your battle line and the rest of your units that don't have that rend, that at least will be going through and doing the mortals. So I think Icebone is the standout choice at the moment with the meta. The only other one that might find a time is Drakfoot. This is the one that unlocks more boys as your battle line. More boys, loads of attacks, two choppers. I think there's 4 attacks each on the charge, so you've got quite a lot of weight of attacks in there. But the thing about Drakfoot is it takes her off that ignore the after save, the ward save, so ethereals. I think at the moment with the meta, with Amulet of Destiny going down to 6, going to 6, it's slightly different. And those more boys, I mean, you want to unlock the battle line to put 30 in a unit or double reinforce things, and because of coherency, you've got 1-inch reach, you're never going to get that many in. So
what about bone grinds? Because bone grinds on paper looks good. You get +1 attack characteristic to melee weapons by your savage arrow boys. And for anyone who's played the arrow boys in the past, a lot of Bonesplitterz was built around the archers. So why would I not want to get +1 attack on these missile weapons and then double reinforce them to have that unit of 30?
Okay, so let's talk about, I guess, arrow boys. I mentioned them briefly. They got 2 attacks, and they're 5s and 4s, no rend unless it's a monster, 1 damage. You don't have a way to buff them other than all-out attack, so you go to 4s and 4s on that. You don't have exploding hits on there. So really the damage output that you're getting, you get 1 extra attack. So a block of 30, you've got 90 attacks at 5s and 4s or 4s and 4s, no rend, you're just hitting like with a pillow. There's no damage there. You get +1. You can get +1 save so easily on any unit, and so you're at 3 up. With those, you haven't got any bonuses to wound. You haven't got the exploding 6s. It's just not doing enough. I think they're a cheap unit and they are perhaps good as a screen these days. But I would probably take shooters over them, because then the shooters are -1 to hit. It's 20 on an objective rather than 10, and they cost the same points. So yeah, I just don't think Bone Grins has got any play at the moment because of where the Arrow Boys are at.
And shooters are referring to the Gloomspite Gits, Goblin shooters, which, yeah, they got the netters in there. You've got the banner for the +1 save if you're being shot at. There's a lot of good stuff in that, and very cheap bodies, I guess. And I'm going to assume, and I'm going to make this comment, and I know the answer, but I just want to call it out anyway, Mikey. You've got the ability with the Arrow Boys to get the rend -1 attacks against a monster. Now, that would turn it to rend 1. But I guess weight of dice. If I've got, I'm not going to do the maths, but if I had 3 attacks, hitting on 4s because I spend a command point to do, all-out attack, hitting on 4s, wounding on 4s, mathematically, 90 shots turns into what? 30? 25?
Yeah.
Put it in half, then divide it in half. Surely like 20 to 30 wound saves at rend -1 is got some play.
I think you got most monsters are going to be on a 3 up, and then they're going to go straight to a 2 up. On that, they might even have Mystic Shield on. They're just going to be rolling a 2 up or a 3 up on that. So you might chip them off, but you're putting so many points into it, and you're using all your reinforcement slots for that, and so they're not. It's not enough of a hammer. It doesn't do enough for the points that you're putting into it, and those reinforcement slots are really important.
Yeah, I knew the answer. I just wanted to call it out because it sounds good in theory. Like rend -1, cool. I'm going to get all these shots. But when you do the maths of how many points you're going to spend to get double reinforced Arrow Boys, the command point to do all-out attack, then the sheer weight of dice, and you'll probably find that, depending on the hero and the monster you're targeting, it sounds good in theory, but probably not in practice.
Yeah, and you could just tag that unit, and then they're out. Then and they might not even kill the thing that's tagged onto them.
So talk to me about the Allegiance ability, because you've got, because you're right, like Icebone or Drakfoot. I think Drakfoot is good, that you're really building around the, cutting through ward saves, and not everyone has a ward. Amulet of Destiny, as you've mentioned, got toned down a little bit, so you're not seeing nearly as much. If Gotrek gets back into the meta and starts like driving people insane, maybe Drakfoot, because you'll pull him down super easy. Maybe with Nighthaunt, if Nighthaunt becomes really popular in the meta, Drakfoot might become really good. But I can see why Icebone of the 3 could be a popular build, giving you those mortals, because that's going to cut through the high armor saves right now. Just doing mortal wounds equal to the damage of the weapon.
Yeah, the maths works out better on Icebone with the mortals to wound than it does on turning off the after save anyway. So even if you get your Maw Boys with 4 attacks each, or your Boar Boys with 5 attacks, you're going to be hitting those 6s to wound, and you've got the option for them to roll 1s and 2s on their saves.
So a couple of the rules you've got the War Paint. So all of your friendly Bonesplitterz units are going to have a 6-up ward. Pretty good, pretty tasty, because a lot of your units are like 2 wounds or more. It will not make a huge difference, but it'll all add up to the amount of wounds you'll have on the table and the battle shock you might need to take. And you can turn that once per game into a 4-up ward instead of a 6-up ward. You've also got if the unmodified hit is for a Bonesplitterz has 5 or more models and it's a 6, it explodes into 2 hits. and you've obviously got the free move. So half of your Bonesplitter units can move up to 5 inches before the battle round commences in the first battle round.
Yeah, so the war paint's good because all our saves are pretty bad across the board. It's
like
fives or sixes basically. If it's got a shield, it's a 5. Yeah, otherwise it's a 6. And so at least you've got a chance with anything with Ren just to save a little bit on that. The War is really good. This opens up a whole lot of things. This isn't in your phase, it's in any combat phase, which is different to what you get with Iron Jaws and Cruel Boys. It's got to be in your charge phase to unlock that for Iron Jaws. You can do it in both, and this becomes a big denial piece and something that wins you games because you have a set of Boar Boys or some Orruks, which is like 20 or 15 wounds, and you think, yep, I'll just do kill this battle line, and then suddenly they're on a 4-up, and you're just denying that straight away. And this is, that by getting those points or denying those points, that's how you win games. And so the big war is huge for us. You have to have your general on the board. And the thing that synergizes quite well with this is one of the artifacts, which pretty much every Bonesplitterz list you're seeing it. It means that the 6-up ward goes to a 4-up ward, and then so in combat it goes to a 2-up. And so they go slay the warlord, and you've got this in your pocket, and it's on your warlord. You've got a 2-up after save on what's probably your Wargog or your Maniac Weird Knob. And so again, it's that denial piece, and it's you can choose when to do it. Unfortunately, there's a few things like the Fire Slayers, when they fight first, you get to choose what you do first in the combat phase, and so they go before this. And so there's a few ways that you can tech away from giving Bonesplitterz the opportunity to do it. But most of the time, you get the choice of that, and so that's a big power play. Or if you've got loads of units in combat, then you're doing this, and you've got that survivability, and that's something that we lack. You can't compete if you get into combat for 5 rounds in a row.
Yeah, you've got the wounds. Like, I think that's the key, right? Your Bonesplitterz have plenty of wounds. Your armor save is relatively trash. Like, probably very few of your models would actually have a 4-up save. They're mostly around the 5s and the 6s.
Yep.
Which begs the question: do you use all-out defense? I mean, I guess all-out defense and Mystic Shear will keep them around a little longer, but you're not building a tank unit with armor save. You're building a tank unit with the sheer amount of wounds in that unit.
Yeah, so with the Boar Boys, they're on a 5-up, so you often see Mystic Shield going on them. And I think Calvin was running 15 of these guys, and that is quite a big tar pit when you've got them. You've got them on a 4-up, and then ignoring an after save. Yeah, so you got them on a 3-up there, and it's hard. They're three wounds each, so you've got to really get through them. And then you've got the after save, and then you could potentially a 4-up after save in that. You have to invest an awful lot, and you're not. You're going to struggle to get through 5, let alone 15. Yeah.
And it's interesting because it's actually is it the Boar Boys, or is it the Maniacs or the Boar Boys? It seems like most people were building around the Savage Arrow Boys or the Maw Boys initially, but it seems like the hidden list tech at the moment is really actually leaning in towards the Pickies, which is unfortunate because, as No had said, it kills me that these sculpts exist because they are cool models in theory, but you look at them and they're very old. Like, you can tell they're old Games Workshop kits, which some people really like. Some people think, give me an update.
Yeah, I've got about 80 of these painted up to tabletop. And yes, it gets pretty painful after a while with those sculpts.
I think that's part of the challenge as well, is that a lot of people have not invested into the Piggies, so they have probably maybe why they haven't really looked into it properly. And do you want to go out and buy them? But when you do look at the Boar Boys and even the Maniacs to some degree, that's probably where you're probably seeing the most competitive stuff of Bonesplitterz coming out.
Yeah, well, you've got weight of attacks and you've got movement. So they serve two purposes: the ball boys versus the maniacs. So the maniacs are actually one of your hammers in there. They can do a lot of damage. I think when you get them buffed up. So I think with they've got on the charge 4 attacks on top and then 3 attacks on the bottom, and there's a spell that will give them +2 rend. So if you run them in a unit of 10, you can usually get 8. You can quite get 9 with coherency, and so you're looking at 56 attacks with exploding 6s. You've got mortals on 6s, and you've got potentially -2 on the tusks. So they become a bit more of a threat. Whereas the ball boys are more of a control unit by putting those saves up and just screening out, basically.
We should probably talk about the pink elephant in the room, which is the Kragnos, because we'll bring up your list, and I'm looking at Craggies, and I actually ran Craggy at an event last weekend. Obviously not in Bonesplitterz, but just in general, right? Very cool model, 700 odd points, only 18 wounds. A couple of things happened in the winter FAQ, like the six up ward can make units run. Charge 3d6. I think there's a few other minor tweaks, but why is Craggy come into play for Bonesplitterz, and what's he bringing to the party, I guess?
Yeah, so I thought he came into play before the update. So I ran him beforehand because he had the rend in there. He's got the 3-inch reach on that dread mace. He's a way of completing battle tactics. If you want to kill a battle line, he's going to go through them. If you need to bring a monster down, you're going to do it. And we've got 2 of those as battle tactics. So you've got 2 options at that. You want to be charging into monsters. Bonesplitterz love killing monsters, and he's there to do it.
Yes.
The 3d6 charge just really emphasizes that board presence that we've already got. So we've got the pre-game move that we're going up the table. We've got a 3d6 charge on top of that. If you're 22 apart, that you usually are on most things, if you want to alpha, you can either move 5 or 8, depending on one of the command traits that you take. Your ball boys are moving 12 on top of that, and you're staying in range of this guy. The ball boys are 3 inches away anyway, but you've got, even if you want to take maybe big stabbers or a unit, you become 9 away at this point by doing the pre-game move and their move, and then you've got 3d6 on a 9. So if you did want that alpha to go in, he unlocks that. And the 6-up ward. The biggest thing it had before was the survivability, and then you also have the mightiest makes righteous that you've got there. This is pretty key. You can sit him on an objective, and it's a lot of points just to sit on an objective. But he's not just sitting on an objective; he's controlling the space around him so much, because nobody wants to come near with a monster, because he's going to charge you. He synergizes really well with the ball boys, because he moves 10 and the ball boys move 12, and you can wrap him up with the ball boys, and you play against Iron Jaws and the Maw Crusher. You see a load of them on the board, but they have 1-inch reach, and you can just put ball boys either side of him and they can't get in, whereas he can. The synergize between the 12-inch move and the 10-inch move is really big for the Bonesplitterz, because you can keep him safe and have that massive threat.
Craggy does a lot of things. If you look at his attack profile, an all-out attack gets him hitting on 2s, wounding on 2s, damage 4, rend -3, D3 damage. Like, he brings a lot to the table, right? Like, from a weapon delivery point of view, he will delete a lot of great things. You look at some of the abilities, right? He's going to count to 30 on an objective. He is going to himself, as well as units within a wholly within 12-inch bubble of him, allows them to charge with 3d6 as opposed to 2, as well as it allows you to charge from outside of 18 as opposed to the 12 as per normal. You've got some abilities, like when you charge a monster, you get to roll 2 dice and multiply those numbers to do a bunch of mortal wounds only to monsters. But we won't talk about that because I played a corner opponent in my tournament last week and I rolled 2 7s.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a
If
nightmare.
you roll a 7, nothing. I rolled them twice. I rolled it two times and I did 7 twice. And also, there's a whole bunch of other things, right? Craigie's got a 6-up ward save. I'm sure there's other things in there. He's a totem. But, like he's a bit of a utility piece. He does a lot of great things. He supports as well as he's a smashy. Look, he's only got 18 wounds, which is probably one of the biggest gripes that I have because I've played against long strikes. And when they use that holy command to shoot in the hero phase and they got to shoot in the shooting phase, they've almost pulled down Craggy at the top of turn 1.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a hard thing to do. And when you're paying 700 odd points, you really need to make the most of this particular model. So I guess my question to you, Mikey, is what does he bring to the table specifically to the Bonesplitterz? And what do you really benefit by having his presence in the faction?
Yeah, so board control, he's such a big threat because he can do so many different things. You can control space with him so well. If you deploy him on one side of the board and you're a 1-drop, you've already decided where they're going to put things, and you're pinning them into a place where you want them to be. Before they've even put any toys on the table, you're already controlling what they're doing, and that's what he does. He at the 3d6 charge. The questions people asked you at the beginning of the game is, what's the threat range? And you just go, well, this guy it means I can get to you. Wherever you put your models, I'm going to be getting to you, or I have the threat that I'm going to do that. And so, what you're trying to do is you're trying to control the board with Bonesplitterz, and the best way that you can do that is by saying, right, you either deploy on the line and we're definitely going to get you, or you deploy a bit further back and we might get you. And then
because you've got the free move, you got the 5-inch move, you got your base movement of, like, if you're talking about piggies, it's 10, so that's 15 inches.
Base move is 12. Yeah, it's
12. There you go, even better.
Yeah, so if you're 22 apart and you've got the regular moves, you're going to be 5 inches away with the ball boys if they deploy on the line. and they get +1 to charge anyway. So on 3 dice, you're going to be in, unless you roll that triple 1. But then, you've got you don't want to be. The thing is, you're telling everyone that I can get you, but with Bonesplitterz, you don't actually want to charge in. So you want to charge in with Kragnos. You don't with the others.
And that was going to be my second question. And, just because I can drive with my feet doesn't make it a good idea. And the same question to you would be, do you want to charge turn 1? Because the temptation is there, right? The 5-inch move. So the 5-inch pre-game move. Then you've got the up to 12-inch movement for the piggies. Then if they deploy in the line, it's a 5-inch charge turn 1. If you've gone battle regiment, you get to determine who goes first. Do you even want to?
It depends on the army. If they're a combat army, probably not. Playing against Fire Slayers, I'm just going to put 5 ball boys just outside of 3 and just hold you in there. I don't want to try and engage you in combat because you're going to kill me quicker than I'm going to kill you, and I need to hold on. So you'd put ball boys in there, 3 inch away, and then you're going to double screen for that in case they get the double. So you've got another set of ball boys behind. Meanwhile, you're racking up all of the points. They can't get on stuff. They've got to come through you. If it's more, I played Lumineth in my first game, and it was this, in my first game at Bloodshed, and it was all about just pinning him in and getting up on points. And for me, I knew that I needed to kill his wardens in order to win the game because they were the ones who were going to score points. So for that one, I just YOLO'd, went all in. We went all the ball boys across, called the war on the first round because I've got so many units in, and I'm killing as much as I can, knowing that I'm taking off his way of scoring pretty early in the game. But generally, you don't actually want to go in, but you're giving your opponent all of the signs beforehand. You're saying, yeah, I can go this far. I'm playing destruction, so I'm going to charge you, and you're just making them draw back further back. And then if they go really far back, you go, right, well, you can have the first turn. And then I think having that pre-game move is and playing Bonesplitterz, it's really important to be one drop. I think it's really key to be able to understand what you're doing with those 5 inches or 8 inches before the game.
So I'm going to double down on that one. Let's not move off that topic, right? So I am a Bonesplitterz player. I can move 5, or if I take the artifact or the command trait, I can make that an 8. When would you always move your 5 or your 8? Or if you don't, like, what's the decision tree? Is it if I want to go first, if I'm not going to go first? Like, talk me through like when I would use the extra inches or not.
Yeah, sure. So I just confirm, I guess it's the rules are that you can move half of your units 5
Yes.
or 8 inches. I play heavy on the ball boys, so they've already got a lot of movement. So I don't. So it's not that necessary to get the 8. What makes the decision, I guess, on here is you can also pre-game move and get onto objectives as well. In the rules, it's written that before the start of the first turn, you claim the objectives that you're wholly within 6. So you have that. You can play mind games with your opponent by putting on the line, telling them what your threat range is, and things. They are convinced you're going to charge them first turn, and you're measuring out all the distances. And then when you get back around to it, if they've got shooting, you suddenly move your units back out of range, and you're going, over to you. You go first, it all depends what you're playing against. I do feel like the choice of first turn with having that that move makes a difference, because if you're both one drop and they get it, you don't know whether to screen out by moving 5. It makes it more difficult, and by not having Kragnos, you're basically opting into going to a 2 drop, because you're not going to get you want to go more Wergogs, and then you're going to want to have more than 3 essentially, or you want to have more points in there.
So, just to call out a really good point, you're saying that you use the 5 inch or the 8 inch to not necessarily just move forward. It's not just about moving up 5 inches or 8 inches and then YOLOing it up the board. You're using it to counter deploy, to go, right, well, I know where you've deployed your force. I'm now going to move 5 inches to the side, to the back, forward if you want to, put some pressure onto an objective, or move completely out of range for spells and unbinds, or to even reposition a wizard to be in more of the wizard unbinding range. So it's less just about running forward, and I think that's a lot of people think us destruction players do. I think to the point of people know destruction and we love to run forward. It's like our mantra. But we also sometimes move to the side.
Yeah, well, I do it. I set out a letter 5 inches above. I put a ruler out, or markers out to say this is how far I'm moving forward. I know I'm probably not going to move there, but by putting those things out, you're in the player's head saying, yeah, this is where they're going to be. So they measure everything from there. You're making it easy for them, but then you're like, well, actually, no, I'm just going to move back out of unbind range. Yeah, and I'm going to cast my spell and stay where I am.
Do the rogue idols have the keyword for Bonesplitterz?
They do, yeah. So they can move forward.
So in Alpha Beast Pack, you could get like a begillion move. Like, you get Alpha Beast Pack gives you the free 6 inch move, or is it a free movement and then you get the 5er?
But you're moving out of one drop by doing that immediately, which again takes away knowing whether you're going to be able to do it or not. But yeah, it is something that I've looked at. For that fun, I've got 2 rogue idols, so you can just about fit in, I think, 2 rogue idols, Kragnos, and a couple of things with D6 movement.
Thank you, Zero Scale. It's actually it's a D6 movement. I couldn't think of if it was a set number or if it was a dice roll. Appreciated. So it could be 11. It could be 6.
Yeah, but if you think about it, if you've already got Kragnos, you're already moving up 5. They're base 10, so you're 15. That's a 7-inch charge already, which odds on you're going to do it with a reroll anyway.
I was more thinking the points, Mikey. I was thinking 700 odd points for Craggy, 400 odd points for the Rogue Idols. We're now at 1,500 points probably, if not more, on 3 models, and we're not Suns. We still need 3 battle lines, so it kind of quickly. It sounds good in theory, but look, you obviously Kragnos is such a great delivery mechanism that you probably don't even need the Alpha Beast Pack, for example, if you wanted to even go full potato and go Craggy plus 2 Rogue Idols and just run forward because they've got the speed through Kragnos.
Yeah, you would just take one. Yeah, I think to go into the list, or you wouldn't have the points. You take Kragnos out, and all of a sudden you're doing less with more points.
Do you have any favorite units in Bonesplitterz?
The Wargog, 100% is got to be is the best unit I think in the game. Just for that mini game that you're playing. Plus, he's got great utility, 2-cast wizard. And the model's cool. Yeah, I've got about 6 of them, just in case you need to run all 6 at one point. But yeah, he's great, and I love the Ball Boys. Yeah.
And for anyone who maybe hasn't revisited the Wargog Prophet War Scroll, why does that make it such a great model in the game? Like, what is it about the Wargog that people might have overlooked if they just didn't look at the War Scroll?
So it's the staring that they have. You sacrifice your 2 spells and you just say, right, I'm just going to stare at this unit or stare at this monster, and I get to roll a dice. On a 1 and 2, nothing happens. On a 3+, you do D3 mortal wounds to them, and then you just basically say, right, well, I've done D3. I'm going to carry on staring until either my head explodes or you explode, and it's just great fun to have on the table. And it's a clutch play. When you don't have any shooting in a game, you can unlock your units to then go out and score points. I think somebody was posted on Twitter the other day. If you have the 4-up ward save, the average that you get on it, the numbers is 18 damage. Which is bonkers. I mean, my head usually explodes when I start staring on the first couple of rolls. I ran 4 of them and Kragnos before Christmas, before the updates, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. But it works either way. You're also it also works into the denial as well. So if you've got your warlord with that. On the board as a Wargog, you can deny by blowing your own head up. So if you know that you're in a difficult spot, and it usually means that something's within 12 and you're going to be in danger. It's only got a 5-inch move, so whatever's around you is going to be able to go slay the warlord. You've already used your war. You're probably going to be in trouble. You can go, right, I'm either going to kill this thing or it's going to kill me next turn, and it's going to get the slay the warlord easily, and you just deny it by chipping off some wounds, and that's this denial game that Bonesplitterz really lean into.
All right, a burning question for my boy Hades in the chat, always asking the same question, just in a different flavor. Thoughts on the Underworld Warband? Like, I was rudely not looking at you as I revisited the War Scroll, and I'm like, because most of the Underworld's warbands don't align very well with the game. There's a couple of standouts, but most of the time they're just cool alternative sculpts. Do you have any thoughts on Hedge, Raka, Gob of Gork?
So the sculpts are the best thing going for it. Unfortunately, the War Scroll spell, it doesn't give you anything. I think is it the headbutt or
the spell is Bone Crusher. So your casting value of 6, range 24. If successfully cast, pick one enemy unit within range and visible. If it's within 6 of the caster, it's D6 mortal wounds. If it's within 6 and 12, it's D3 If the unit is outside of 12, it's 1 mortal.
Yeah, so it's basically 1 mortal at range, and
it's a double caster. It is a double caster, and probably for me, the rule that stands out the most is the Eye of the Weakness, which you get to pick in the hero phase. You pick 1 enemy unit within 18 inches, and essentially you get to add +1 to your hit rolls for that for units that target that enemy unit.
But is that only the Hedra? Is that locked into?
No. The Hedra, his posse also gets +1 attacks, +1 to hit. But no, it's just add 1 to the hit rolls for attacks made by this unit that targets in a.
Yeah, so it's not even the other units, so it doesn't synergize with the other things. You might, if you had some big stabbers, then you'd be hitting on 2s rather than 3s, maybe. Where it'd be useful. The boar boys on the charge get +1 to hit if they've got the sticks anyway. So yeah, it wouldn't synergize that well. And if you want a 2-cast wizard, you're going to take the Wargog because it's at 220 points for Hedrux mob, and it's 150 for a Wargog. You're not getting 70 points of utility out of that. You might as well take the Shadespire Gits. Who are the wolf? What are they called?
Yeah, the 3 dire wolf, not dire wolves, the hobgoblin wolves. I can't remember what they're called.
Yeah, you want to take them, and so you can take a Wargog and those for the same points, and you're going to get so much more utility out of it.
Yeah, for 220, it's a bit expensive for me to be taking, and the War Scroll's not strong enough. Like, some cool things like it's -1 to hit against it, but it's against it. Its spell isn't ranged that impressive. So, I mean, you run it if you want to run it. But from a competitive point of view, I think the challenge is, to your point, do I just run another Wargog Prophet and get a bunch of those goblin doggos instead?
Yeah.
All right. Let's bring up your list, mate. We've been dancing around this, and I want to get into the list, and I want to find out a little bit about this crack science that you've come up with. And you've obviously got Kragnos. We've talked a lot about Craggy already and the versatility. I'll give you an example, right? Last weekend, when I played at this little tourney, I charged Scarbrand. So I charged Scarbrand. I rolled 7, so I did no mortal wounds on the charge. I'm like, right. And I had picked, I think, Slay the Warlord. I think it might have been the Warlord. Or I picked a command trait where I had to kill Scarbrand. And I'm really disappointed. His Dread Mace, or his Mace, I used all-out attacks, so hitting on 2s, wounding on 2s, Ren 3 for 4 damage. I killed Scarbrand from that profile alone. Scarbrand had no wounds put on him. He was fully buffed up. Deleted him like that. I deleted a Item the Turtle in one shot. I deleted Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon. Again, one shot at it. He is a brutal combat monster.
Yeah, it just gets you those battle tactics. He's you say Scarbrand, you had bring it down on Scarbrand. It needs to happen. You know it's going to happen because you're either going to do it with the mortals or you're going to do it with the mace and the rest of the attacks. The battle line, it's the same. It's just consistent. He's going to be able to do it. He's going to be able to do Conquer because he's worth 30 things. Yeah, he's a guarantee with it.
So you've obviously got, your Wargog Prophet, you've got your Maniac Weird Knob, you've got a bunch of Savage Boar Boys, you've got 4 units of Savage Boar Boys, all with the choppers. You've got a unit of 10 Maniacs, and one thing we'll talk certainly about as well is your crack science by having a Gloomspike Git Spider. If you told me you're going to bring in an ally, I would have thought you're going to bring in, I don't know, anything else other than like a spider. And not even the hero spider, not even because that's got a nice little self-buffing -1 aura.
Yeah, I think
you've gone Skinner's Grand.
Yeah, when going through my list with opponents, it's the question is, who is this guy? What does he do? And I talk through the profiles, and it's pretty terrible. But he's on a massive base. People don't know how bad he is, and he also the best thing about his War Scroll is he can deep strike. So you don't have any access to deep strike within Bonesplitterz. You already, as I said before, we're looking to control the board, we're looking to pin them in, we're looking to show strength with Kragnos and the D6 charge. All of a sudden, you've got another monster that's sitting in the wings and is threatening their backboard. Yeah, he's not going to do much when he comes on, but he also unlocks more points as well for those battle tactics. So you can put him on the board to start with. You can ferocious advance with by turning one of your wizards into a monster. For Savage Spearhead, you can bring him down on turn 3. If Kragnos is already in their territory, you're getting an extra point there. Also, he just becomes he's just great bait. You know, he's a monster. You're rewarded by killing monsters. People, and he's worth 180 points. He does nothing. It just stops people from taking out some ball boys who are doing loads of work. They're moving around 12-inch. I've also got a grand strategy of hold the line. You put this Skitterstrand down. He's on a 4-up save with 14 wounds, so you have to commit quite a bit into him to kill him. And whatever you're not committing into him, you've got the choice of your battle tactic to bring it down with either Kragnos or the spider, and you're gonna do the spider. And this means Kragnos is living for another round and doing what Kragnos does. So he's in there as bait. As you're giving up that 1 point, but also you're opening up another point probably with Kragnos, because you're going to countercharge. You've got the mortals, and you're going to get the extra points there, and you're also going to make up the points with the Savage Spearhead as well.
Yeah, so this keeps you as a 1-drop, and it's enough of a distraction for your opponent to avoid the things that you don't want damage, your ball boys, your Prophet, your Kragnos, things like that. So ultimately, it's a massive distraction piece, but it still does have value to what you've kind of mentioned. And now that you've kind of talked it through, I can see why you would do it. I imagined, because 180 points is a fair chunk of points, right? You could spend that on a lot of things. That could be another Wargog Prophet.
Yeah, well, so it wouldn't be another Wargog because you go to 2-drop. What it would be is another 5 ball boys, and it means that the alternative is if you take basically another set, you make one of the unit of 5 a 10, and that means you've got a bigger tar pit. You're more likely to get hold the line potentially with it. But yeah, the deep strike and having that distraction piece, I think, just makes your opponent have to make another decision, another thing that they're having to make these micro decisions about. They're thinking about the 12-inch range of the Wargog Prophet. They're thinking about the 3d6 and Kragnos and the threat that he hears, and then suddenly you've got this deep strike thing, and it's on a massive base. It looks scary as fuck. The spider, it's going to come in and do nothing, but in their head, it's a big monster that's going to be doing some work. I should be saying this. It's terrifying. Yeah,
No.
It kills everything. Yeah.
I laugh because I'm a Gits player. I know what this. I mean, us Gits players, we only take the wizard spider. Like, that's our key, right? You take the wizard spider because it's got the great spell lore, and it naturally has a -1 against it. So anyway, what's this list trying to do? Like, talk me through, like, what are you trying to achieve? You've mentioned already a lot of the discussion. It's less about doing pure damage because you just don't have the rend, and you just don't have the ability to do mass damage, especially at range. You've obviously got Kragnos. Kragnos is an absolute monster, but outside of Craggy, and I guess holistically, what are you trying to achieve with this list? It's board control, right? You've said it many times.
Yeah, so it's board control, it's denial, and it's being able to achieve your battle tactics and score objectives. Skitterstrand as well, monstrous takeover. You can just bring it down turn 3, turn 2, and you're not using Kragnos to do that. There's the ability to score your battle tactics and have a multitude of options in there is amazing. That we didn't talk about one of the other extra bits of tech on that Wargog Prophet that makes it even better. The staring happens at the beginning of the hero phase, so you don't even have to pick your battle tactic before then, and so you can react off what you do with that. You can also slay the warlord and choose it afterwards, and you still get the battle tactic. it's the denial. It's a denial list, and board presence. That's what it does.
So how does your list work in regards to doing that? You know, how is the Wargog Prophet and the combination of, you know, the artifacts that you've chosen and, you know, the spells? How does this all come about? Talk to me through how the list synergizes.
So you got Kragnos, who I've already said synergizes really well with the ball boys with that 10-inch, 12-inch move. You're using your ball boys to screen, but you're also using it to wrap up. The Wargog, we've spoken about him. He has this 12-inch bubble around him, which you're daring people to come into, and you know he's also got the denial piece with the 4-up after save, the artifact glowing tattoos. The command trait is Master of Magic, so you're just putting in a bit more reliability on here. On the spells that you've got. So you've got the glowing green tusks, which add -2 Ren to the ball boys. So that goes for all of the units that you basically got there. And then you've got a reroll on that.
Why would you go the Master of Magic command trait? So outside of your book, you've obviously gone into the core book, as opposed to, you know, you've got some interesting ones. You know, the Voice of the Great Green God, and the Wonder with the Beast. So you could get an extra spell, or you could be issuing commands wholly within 24 as opposed to 18. So why Master of Magic as opposed to those two?
So the reliability that you've got in there for the reroll of the cast. I'd say the command traits, all of the units have got a leader in there, so they're going to be issuing those commands themselves most of the time anyway. So having extra on there is not going to make too much difference. The one that is a bit interesting is you get pluses to cast based on how many monsters are close, and that's an artifact in there. That's an artifact, sorry. The only other command trait that I've seen interesting that's been run is Lewis runs one extra, the extra wound. And so you're just looking at making it, rather than a 7 to an 8, which adds into that the staring game, adds to that survivability.
And by the way, earlier in the show, we were talking about the pre-game move being 8 inches. That's coming from the Savage Warlord command trait, Great Hunter. So if you wanted to move 8, that's how you would do it. I'm just looking at the command traits and looking at your other options. Like, oh, that's right. That's where it comes from. So if you wanted to know how you get the 8.
You get taxed if you're going to run that, because you have to take the Savage Big Boss. He's a 6 wound hero on a 6-up save, and then he becomes your general. You need your general on the field to call the War, which is one of your power pieces already. When I run him, he just hides. He goes in the far right corner, far left corner, away from their threats. He's finding the biggest piece of rock and standing behind it. That's all he's doing, because you're just
literally
trying
to pull down the War.
To call on the War and to unlock the 8-inch move. You want the 8-inch move if you've got your big stabbers, maybe. But he's a 65-point tax and adds to that the command, the hero units. You only got 3 of them to have anyway. So the other one that's interesting is the Weird Knob. He's on a boar. He's on a boar, so he's got the 12-inch move, and he's usually hanging around with Kragnos to basically stop people piling into him. Again, you're just blocking things with him, and he's got so much utility because you can take the mount trait faster. So he moves 12 already. He can move 12 in the hero phase. He can get to places he wants, and then you can combat that with his spell, which we've taken here, which is Fight Last, and you have to be within 12 in order to fight last. Which is a great piece, but both this casts on a 7, and his War Scroll spell is +1 to wound as well. So you could put that on your maniacs, and so their 4 attacks on top are hitting on 4s and 2s, can become 3s and 2s if you're giving all out attack.
Why not take power of the Werebore, which gives you that +1 to run, charge, hit, but it can't shoot?
So +1 to hit, you can already give it pretty easily. Also, the boar boys, the boars have +1 to hit, built into their war scroll for +1 to hit and wound on the charge anyway. So you've already got that. We're already moving pretty far, and we've got Kragnos for the D3 charge. So yeah, it becomes less reliable. You only really want to take that if you've got big stabbers, because then they're hitting on 2s, and they don't have a hero in the unit to issue the commands.
So that'd be more of a useful spell if you didn't have Craggy in the list. But since Craggy has given you that delivery mechanism and you're already getting +1 here and there, it's probably not nearly as valuable as the Warcry, because you are a glass cannon. You aren't going to take a punch really well. So if you can get 1 extra attack in because you've made your opponent fight last, you've got a little bit more survivability and deniability, I guess, to deny your opponent attacks.
Yeah. Also with the Fasten as well, the Savage Spearhead becomes an option so easily. So I often end up turning him into a monster, and then using the Fasten, dropping down the Skitterstrand. You don't even have to use Kragnos. So Kragnos can go wherever he wants. You're not having to use him in order to get your battle tactic. He's just killing the things that he needs to kill.
Talk to me about these ball boys. So, I reckon a lot of people haven't looked at this War Scroll for a while.
Yeah.
What is making you put in 4 units of 5 ball boys?
Okay, so they're 3 wounds each, 140 points. And move 12. They're on a 5-up save, and they've got a lot of attacks. You want to keep them in units of 5. If they stay as a 5, so they have 26 attacks total, going in on the charge to someone, which is for 140 points, 25 attacks, and with 5 you're exploding. You've got exploding attacks on 6s. You're going to be chipping a little bit away, but for me, their utility is just that 12-inch move. You can get around the board so much. They're on the cavalry bases, so you can block a fair bit. With terrain, you can block channels off with them really easily, and they're not that easy to kill. On that 5-up save, you can Mystic Shield them, and all-out defense, and so you're ignoring Ren 2 with them. I feel like
they get +1 to hit and wound as well when they charge for the stickers or the tusks. You haven't gone the stickers; you've gone the choppers.
Yeah, so gone the choppers is mainly because I've got them built that way. I would say so. The sticks. Again, you're not trying to really do damage with them that much. You're just looking to control space and screen with them. So irrespective of, if I was running a unit of 10, I'd take the stickers because they're on 2-inch reach. But I'm just running 5s there, and so that's why they're there. I'd probably have them with stickers if I had them built that way, but I've already done it.
I mean, so in the best case, you probably go stickers for the overall. Is that they're better, or?
Yeah, so I mean, the difference is it's 4s and 3s with the choppers, and it's 4s and 4s with the stickers. But then on the charge, it's going to be 3s and 3s. Generally, I'm not charging the unit in, because they're a control piece, and a screen, rather than on the charge. If I had larger units of them, I'd be charging them in. Like the 15, you'd want them there to get 3s and 3s on the charge, with those, and more attacks in with the 15. But again, they're not there to charge. The maniacs are there to charge. The ball boys are there to screen.
Right. So when you say screen, are you putting them just outside of 3 inches so your opponent is stuck wherever they are? Are you screening the objective? Like, what are you screening?
So screening so you're putting them, if you've got the first turn, you're pinning them in by putting them 3 inches apart. It depends on the opponent. They've got flying and things, but Fire Slay's a good example. They don't move very far. They're really punchy in combat, and so you're just blocking the channels that they work in. You're screening off Kragnos. You don't want people charging Kragnos. You want him charging them, so you're doing the mortals in there. So you're wrapping the channels up. You can, if if you've got 4 units that I've got, it basically means I can put one in front. I can do a second screen as well just behind that. If they get the double, they've got to go through both of those, or I can just give away the turn really easily, knowing that I'll have the double next. And then I've got 2 other units who can either hold backboard space, or you're using one of the units to cover one side of Kragnos, and then you're using the Maniac Weird Knob to cover the other. So the Kragnos is on a smaller base than some of the bigger monsters. So if you've got the Ghoul King on Terrorgeist or those guys, again, you can just stop him from being able to get in to that 1 inch reach, or to be able to charge. You can just deny being able to charge Kragnos. And you want to keep Kragnos safe because he projects all of that strength, and he does so much.
Yeah, no, it's good just to clarify, because some people will be thinking, what am I screening, or how am I screening? Especially, is it the ball? Are you just trying to screen out the maniacs? How do you do it? Because I guess you can body block an objective. There's a lot of things you can do. You can run it up to soak up and unleash hell, and then Craggy comes in, or then your maniacs go in, and they're not suffering the unleash hell. So, obviously, opponent dependent and battle plan dependent, but you're really using them as a wounds tar pit.
Yep. Yeah, the Unleash Hell is, I've used that a few times. You can throw away a unit of Boar Boys pretty easily, if you've got Kragnos backing him up, or you've got the Maniacs backing him up.
What about these Maniacs? We've been dancing around the Maniacs for a while, like we are a War God Prophet doing our little dance. Talk to me about the Maniacs, because I'll be honest, I have not played against them in Age of Sigmar, period. Not 3rd edition, period.
Yeah, so they're my 3rd threat. So I feel like in a list you need 3 threats. You've got Kragnos in there as the main threat. You've got the Wergog with the staring eyes, and then you've got the Maniacs. Maniacs 3 wounds again, because they're Boar Boys. They've only got a 6-up save. Run 10 of them. I mentioned this before. I think you can basically get 8 into combat easily, 9 at a push with coherency. You've got 4 attacks on top on the charge from the choppers, and then you've got 3 attacks on the boars, which you can potentially use that spell to get +2 rend on there. So you've got a lot of attacks. They're going to be above 5 in a unit because you've got the unit of 10, so that means exploding 6s. So you've got 56 attacks going in with exploding 6s on top of that. Then you've got mortals on the wound for both profiles, so on 6s. So all of those attacks are going to be doing mortal wounds on 6s. And then you've got half of those attacks going to be at -2 rend, potentially, if you get the spell off. So even if something's on a 2-up save, you're going to be doing 13 damage on average to it.
What makes them better than the Boar Boys?
So there's the weight of attacks that you've got there. So you get on the Boar Boys, you've only got 2 attacks on top. With them, you've got 4 attacks on top. And if you add that in with the exploding 6s that you're going to get as well, those weight of attacks just start to multiply.
So the Maniac Fury, you get +1 attack characteristic with the choppers if it's charged. Right. Yeah. So the other one, you get the +1 hit, +1 to wound with the sticker if you charge. So I'm looking at their base profile. I'm like, there's not a lot of big differences on a base profile. There's 3 attacks, 2 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 3s, or wounding on 4s. Like, they're on par. They're kind of, I'm like, why on earth are you doing Maniacs being the delivery mechanism? Like, why wouldn't you just do 10 Boar Boys? But now that you get the +1 attack, then you do the exploding 6s, then you do the mortal wounds and potentially the rend -2. All of a sudden, I can now see why those Maniacs are becoming more of your combat threat, as opposed to why you just wouldn't do that with Boar Boys.
Yeah, and you're playing Denial as well here, so they're not battle line as well. So there's only 5 points difference in between them. Boar Boys are 140, Maniacs are 145. So they just serve a slightly different purpose. They're more attacks. You want to get them in on the charge. The Boar Boys, they've got better defense, and they're there to screen.
Plus, the great thing as well is, as you said, you're not giving away a battle tactic if you lose them, because they're not a hero. They're not your battle line. They're just a unit.
Yep.
And there's a lot into that.
Yeah, but they've got their threat range. They've got 12-inch movement, a 3d6 charge, things. They're getting into what they need to get into as well.
Yeah.
But they can't take a punch unless you call the war.
No, 6-inch save. It's a 6-up save is not a lot. Even like if you throw all your resources at them, it's not a lot. Mikey, you've got some crazy list tech going on here.
Yeah, it's a really fun list to play. I do think 1 drop makes it viable. Even a 2 drop, you're also losing a few times on some games.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot from you just because, again, you can't take a punch and you've got a lot of movement shenanigans. You really want to be getting that first turn choice. Whether you give it away or you take it, you be able to use your pre-move as well. Your half your units can get the free move. I guess you really want to be able to determine who goes first.
Yeah, and you're just trying to control the board. So, but the majority of the time, you're probably going to take first turn, unless it's a castle shooting army, because they're not going to unpack onto the board. You just want to be scoring the objectives as early as possible, but not giving away units. And when you do start to trade, their high. You're forcing them to trade their bigger units with Kragnos, and you're trying to keep Kragnos alive for as long as possible, because he's worth 30 on an objective. He's always going to be scoring you points there.
I think the trap with Craggy is that you just want to always charge. I think for anyone who has played with Kragnos in the past, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And there's a power in holding him back slightly for when you really need him, as opposed to just charging up the board, potentially going into chaff, not getting able to maximize those monster damage, and putting those mace attacks into where you really want to be clearing high armor save, valuable battle tactics that without Kragnos, it becomes a lot harder. Your mission becomes incredibly hard.
Yeah, I've been playing Kragnos with sort of one hand behind my back as well. I've only just realised that it's written in this war scroll that you can roll 3d6 to not to put off a spell. So I wasn't putting Mystic Shield on him, thinking that he doesn't like spells, you can't put it on. And I think that's more testament to the way that Bonesplitterz protect him, because if you weren't doing that with Ogre Mawtribes, you're not going to screen out Ogre Mawtribes. Things are going to be able to charge into him, and you're going to need that extra save. I've been putting my +1 Mystic Shield on my ball boys, because that's what they're supposed to be doing. They're trying to deny them going through that, and I'm not putting on Kragnos because I don't want anything coming into Kragnos anyway. And I'll probably continue to play him a fair bit like that. So only when Long Strikes come out is now I've got an extra tool to try and protect him with Mystic Shield. And
I've thrown Emerald Life Swarm in just to keep him alive a little longer, because I played a game, Long Strikes, pulled him down 12 wounds out of his 18 in the first turn, threw down that Emerald Life Swarm for the double tap, heroic action to heal him up, and I kept him around till like turn 4 in the end, but definitely an easy target for your opponent. So again, it's that balance of making the most of having him versus not putting him in positions where he'll die really quickly, because it's 1/3 of your force, and he's already got a massive target on his head.
Yeah. So we haven't really spoken about a couple of units from Bonesplitterz, and I suspect that Bonesplitterz
is on your list.
Yeah, that not in my list, I guess. Away from my list.
All right. Worry about that then.
I don't want people saying, where are your big stabbers or where are your savage Orruks? And for me, they don't really fit. They don't really fit into this list, just because of the hyper movement that I like to play with those, and having the ball boys having that 12-inch move is why I've got those over having a unit of 10 Orruks in there. I feel like they do. I like to have the mobility more than the wounds.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the ability, the great ability of the big stabbers is doing mortal wounds as they die. I mean, they still got 3 attacks, hit on 3s, wound on 3s, rend 2 for 2 damage, which is not too bad. Safe stacking meta at the moment. That the rend 2 doesn't go as far as it used to. And the mortal wounds to monsters are nice, but do I want to be building around potentially one mortal wound if I roll really poorly?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I ran some big stabbers at a one day. I didn't want to put too much thought into playing my games. I basically just wanted to have some fun games where I smash, rather than all of my games go to time or go close to time, because you're not looking to table someone and you're not looking to get tabled at the same time, and so it does take quite a lot of thought process with it. So I was running 2 units of reinforced big stabbers and Kragnos, and just basically going for that first move. We move the big stabbers 8. They move 5, and then they're charging 3d6, and they've got 3-inch reach. I think that's the best thing on their war scroll, is the 3-inch reach on their on their profile, because that again synergizes with Kragnos. If you clear a screen and then you can get 3-inch, 6-inch threat range, with a fair amount of things in there. So yeah, I've cleared out some hard boys and then piled through and cleaned up a Maw Crusher, with those, just by the base of the Maw Crusher doesn't allow you to basically deploy further than 6 back behind a screen that deploys on the line anyway. So yeah, you've got that 3-inch threat range is really good on Kragnos, but again, the big stabbers have that as well. So I think that's probably the best thing on their war scroll.
What about the Maw Boys? I mean, when you look at the Maw Boys, I mean, I know your list is all about movement, right? And by going your Maw Boys, you immediately lose 7 inches off the movement, right? But they've got good attacks, right? They're 3 attacks each, hitting on 4s, wounding on 3s, +1 attack if they charge. That's not too bad. There's no rend, obviously, but
yeah, you got they're on 32 mil bases, and you've got units of 10, and so getting them into combat is difficult. Whereas if you've got ball boys, you've got 5 attacks base, with the 3 with the boars, 2 on top, and you're on 3s and 3s rather than 4s and 3s with those, and you're getting all of the attacks in. So that's where you get open to more attacks, but you're going to struggle to get them in because you can't just
you suffer the same issues that the Nomadi thralls had for a long time. It's a 32 mil base with a 1-inch attack. So it means you never get, unless you get the perfect charge and you can pin multiple units, you never get the most out of the models in the unit.
I think they're not bad, to be honest. People will undervalue a unit of 10 and how much work they might be able to do. But yeah, for me, I'm not trying to do damage again a lot of the time with their units that's worth 145, unless it's the maniacs, and then I want to be able to put them where they need to go. And yeah, you might be able to do it with the 3d6, but yeah, it's less of a threat range as well, and so less for the opponent to worry about.
No, I like it because the key to the episode really is control. Like if this was like an episode of Sesame Street and we had like a number of the day and we had a word of the day, the word of the day would be control, because you're right. Like the whole theme has been less about how much damage can I do, how many mortal wounds can I do, how do I chip through, and you didn't even go through Drakfoot, right? Drakfoot would be able to cut through ward saves a lot better. What you're doing is you're building around control, you're building around a wound tar pit, and you're building around the ability to do that through allegiance abilities, Kragnos, other unit choices, as opposed to what does the most amount of damage. And it kind of leads into why you took the Skitterstrand Arachnarok as well. Probably not the most optimum choice, but from a control point of view and what it brings to the mobility of your army, it certainly does help a lot.
Yeah, you need your opponent, because playing an under-tiered army, you need your opponent to make mistakes, and for you not to make any, in order to go, to compete at a high level. And by giving them as many questions to answer, you're giving them more and more chances to make those small mistakes. And yeah, but you're always going to be struggling against top tier lists anyway, with someone who knows what they're doing.
What's the key to success? If I'm going to run this army and do incredibly well, how do I do it?
I guess just know what each unit is there for, and don't get excited to charge in because you can. I think that's the hardest thing. I had it in my game 3. I charged my unit of Boar Boys. I was playing Beast of Chaos, Combat Army, and I just didn't need to do it. I just need to stay outside of 3, but they were buffed up. They had their -2 rend on them. And I was like, I just couldn't help myself. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna charge. And it was like, well, now I've lost that screen and a turn earlier than I was supposed to. I think, yeah, key to success is knowing what you're there to do at all times. Just don't do that charge when you don't need to. I retreated Kragnos from combat, and this during one of my games, and that took a lot of willpower to do it. It made sense to do it at the time, but it was, yeah, you have to not be a destruction bro at times and just take a step back and go, what is the right thing to do at this time?
Yeah, that's hard. Like, I don't know if I don't know if I'm ready to go to like Destructions Anonymous and saying that I didn't want to charge. Right? You know, I subscribe to my ABCs, always be charging. I don't know if I can not do that. I'll play order if I want to do, if I don't want to not charge. But yeah, to your point, like, you know, the best option can often be retreating. You know, just getting out of combat, looking at the overall plan. It's not about, you know, combat objectives, battle tactics, making your opponent's life harder, being able to redeploy away, just all those little things that'll help you score the VPs overall, as opposed to just, you know, trying to crush your enemy, but they still beat you on points and battle tactics.
Yeah. And you know, the winning thing to do is just roll 3 ups with your Wargog. If you can do that, you kill everything. It's easy.
What's the best thing you've killed?
I've taken out a unit of Sentinels, 30 Sentinels. Pretty fun doing that. How
did you get within 12 inches of Sentinels to do that?
Piling in. Yeah, so this was a classic. They went to slay the Warlord, 2 up ward save, and then you pile around them, and get within 12. They don't think about it. Yeah, it's you know, but at times, you know, you're also losing your utility piece with it at the same time, potentially. So it swings both ways with it, but it's great fun when you do it. I've had a lot.
Have you killed?
What else good? We've had more crushers. They usually go in there pretty easily. Because of no after save. Generally, if you get one without an amulet. I like the little pieces. So things like war chanters, you pick them up. Skink priests, you know, these are the linchpins of these armies, and you're odds on to stare them off. You know, even with a Wargog who hasn't got the +4 save, it's got 5 wounds. You're gonna kill it. Those little pieces, they're the ones that really make the difference in winning the games. But I played Steve Curtis, I think, at the last game of the game he was running the Sons of Behemoth, and we were both cheering on the table as I tried to stare down his Gatebreaker to achieve my last battle tactic to get it. And I got him down to 1 wound, and we were both gutted. But then the big boss came in from the corner. They'd been hiding in the corner, and managed to do 1 wound on the charge to him to finish him off. But I haven't quite had the full the full one with the Mega Gargants. But I've heard a few. Will stared off, I think, 4 dragons yesterday in his game against a full 11 dragon list. There's
they're absolutely brutal. They're so good, and for the points that you get, like, and there's no wonder you want to put in like 2 or even 3 Wargog Prophets, because they're a damage delivering mechanism, and boy, are they fun.
Yeah,
you play like the Stomp of Gork or the Foot of Gork, or you do like, you know, Arken the Black's got his spell. Like when you go onto that like destruction jackpot, like the slot machine, it's on a knife's edge.
Exactly, and everyone's just having fun with it. You know, it's just the idea that you're just staring with lasers.
Games Lord, good question. No, Kragnos does not benefit from the Great Hunter's battle trait. because he does not have any of the keywords. He doesn't have Sun's keyword. He doesn't have Bonesplitterz or even the Orruk Warclans keyword. So it will not benefit from any allegiance abilities.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a shame. Otherwise that's a guaranteed charge game. First turn.
Jeez, imagine that.
Yeah.
What was I going to ask you? I think I've asked you most of the questions I want to ask. I mean, maybe two. I've got one more question, and then I'll wrap it up. Unless something comes up in the chat. The last question I really wanted to ask you was about your deployment. Do you have any tips or advice you would give to me through deployment? Are you deploying on the line? Yes, I know opponent, battle plan, blah, 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 blah. But just general like Bonesplitterz strategy. How do you deploy, or what are some of your considerations when it comes to deployment?
Yeah, so I guess Kragnos he's going to be the piece that is going to dictate where your army is going to be your opponent's going to be putting all of their things. You need clear lines between the terrain pieces with him in order to get his space through. So that's one thing to consider. You're suggesting you want your opponent to deploy as far back as possible, so you're trying to put everything on the line and just dictate this idea that they're going to have these ball boys in their face turn one, and all they can think of is all these dice that are going to be thrown at them. But the Wargog, you got to consider basically the unbind range is the main thing there. You do have sometimes you're using your pre-game move just to get out of range with that. So you've got your mastery of magic as well on him, which if you're doing that out of unbind range, you're going to be getting your spell off the majority of the time. But yeah, with the ball boys, it's pretty easy to put them on the line and get them wherever they want to go. Really, you don't need to castle up as much, but again, it's if you're playing more, I guess foot units with the 5-inch move, you probably want to be considering where they're going to be on the line, and I think you also, with the pre-game move, you might want to go onto objectives before the first battle round, but you might also not want to do that, because doing that means there's an easy conquer first battle round for your opponent to get by just walking a unit straight up onto an objective. So that's one thing to consider. Yeah, it's good moving up onto them, but also, you're potentially giving something away.
A lot of good tips. And I guess each enemy, each type of threat ranges, and like you could be going Stormcast right now, but there's there's multiple versions of the Stormcast list, so it's hard to tell you exactly do this. But I think what I love about you, and it feels like I'm a kindred spirit, is the psychological threat. I love the ability to psych your opponent out, and just because I can and I deploy on the line doesn't mean I will. That a lot of opponents won't want you to go that ultra aggressive, and they'll defend and they'll split their force and they'll break their castles and they'll do things that they wouldn't normally do. And I think you mentioned it through this discussion before. The more decisions you force your opponent to make, the more likely they're gonna mess one up, and you, knowing your army well, will capitalize on it because you've been through the pain, you've been through the tough matchups, and you really get to stress test. And that's probably one thing I've really enjoyed playing with my armies like Gits, playing my armies, that aren't very good. Even when I played Suns, don't laugh at me, I played them in 2nd edition. I was stress testing them to the max, and I was, doing really well. But I was seeing what happened in various situations, and I now reap the rewards in 3rd edition because I now know what they do.
Yeah. And one thing I did say on deployment: never ask your opponent what their threat ranges are. If you're Bonesplitterz, all you're telling them is what your threat range is, and so in their head they're just saying, "Right, I'm coming to get you." You're not considering them coming to you. Never ask them, because that just gives the game away. You're like, "Oh, hold on a minute, they might be not taking the first turn." Yeah, and you're like, "Oh." So always just look them up, whatever they've got, and work it out yourself. Don't ask them if you're trying to mind game them into thinking that you're going to be in their face.
A lot of your tactic is built around 1-drop. you've talked a lot about the importance of one drop as opposed to like, Warlord or other different options. Because you could go a big block of, foot troops and put them into Hunters of the Heartland and, really grind it down. You could go through other options, but yours is very much about one drop and control and speed. Are you finding in your either competitive meta or even your local meta, a lot of opponents also doing Battle Regiment? Or are you finding you've got a lot more choices on giving away or taking first?
Yeah, there's a lot of one drop around in the UK scene at the moment. I think
globally, to be honest, globally you're seeing a lot of it.
Yeah, Stormcast, they're going to be in a one drop with that. Luminef are now looking to drop down to one drop. You've got. I guguess Iron Jaws are the one that you're not seeing go in there, and to being able to dictate the first turn against them is, it does become a dice roll a lot. So some of the time, but at least you're giving yourself the 50-50 chance, because I think the first game I played a Luminef one drop and I won the roll off, and if I'd lost the roll off, I think it's pretty much I'm fighting a losing battle just from the go. Whereas I put myself in a strong position if I take first turn or have a chance to win.
And against a Lumineth list like that, 30 Sentinels or, long strikes from Stormcast or double shooting bow snakes, if you find those types, because they're quite common in the meta, are you likely to take first, or are you using your pre-game movement to kind of move out of ranges? I mean, long strikes and bow snakes have a 24. Your Sentinels obviously have a 30. What's your thinking there?
I guess it depends on the scenario. If it's a scoring scenario, you want to get on the objectives early and potentially stop them from getting their buff pieces off beforehand. You also need to protect from the double turn, so you're kind of with shooting, you're in a difficult spot a lot of the time. If you can stay out of threat ranges first turn, you're going to give them the first turn because you don't want them to double you and double tap, basically. Although they can double tap already with the long strikes in the hero and the same with the snakes. But at least you're not in range, or you're dictating what they're going to be shooting at through your deployment. And it's you're going to scare them a little bit with Kragnos. They're going to put them on the opposite side anyway, just as a threat. Long strike's probably going to be able to shoot him, but I think Calvin was at the tournament that he was at. He said, with the defender they were allowed to set up the terrain, and I think that makes a huge difference for Bonesplitterz, being able to set up the terrain. So at least you've kind of got that going for you if you do lose that roll off.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I know a lot of tournaments will just set up the terrain. It is what it is, and you don't get that defender benefit, but I can see why that would be very helpful if you had the control. Last and final question, Mikey. Tell me about the bum bag. I hear the king of the bum bag. I hear bum bags are back in fashion. Or I think if the Americans listening to this, they're called fanny packs.
Yeah.
But tell me about the bum bag.
If you're at the table, you can have your dice in there. You can have your all your sticks and things, and you can get into your power pose pretty easily, and you can thrust that. You're reaching into your bum bag, playing with the dice. It's that mind game that you've got with them. But no, it's a bit of a joke, but it's handy having all your things in one place and being able to measure quickly. You're going to be playing long games as well with Bonesplitterz because you're not getting tabled. So you need to have that utility at all times, being able to reach in there, grab what you need.
No, I dig it. I should get my bum back. I've got a nice little fanny pack for when I walk the dog. I've got like my tennis ball to distract the dog. I've got my little poop bags to make sure I can pick up the poop along the way, and a few other utilities like a little water bottle. But I should probably have it's almost like a Batman kind of backpack.
You might have
the combat gauges and good lord.
I think that there's mine. This is the Bucks Wargaming one. You see this quite a lot in there. I had to get this one because I had exactly the same thing. My bum bag smelt like beef because of dog treats, and so I was getting stuff out of it, and it just smelled of dog treats all the time. So yeah, I upgraded.
Yeah, and to the point of the rules, absolutely. In a normal game of Age of Sigmar, the defender would absolutely set the terrain up, and the attacker would certainly pick it. But you will find majority of tournaments have preset the terrain. It is what it is. They don't tell you to move it. So you might find some tournaments let you set up the terrain, but due to the time constraint, certainly one of the reasons. And also it means that as a tournament organizer, especially when I'm running like a 50 to 100 player event, I'm not going around resetting the terrain all the time in between rounds. I've got 100 things to do, and that's just another time consuming thing. So, but if you are at a tournament and they are allowing it, awesome. Good news.
Yeah, I think it might get to a bit of a bad player experience because it can get pretty gamey, I guess, if you're moving terrain pieces out there and you're setting off on the wrong foot with your opponent. You want a fun game, that you both bought into, rather than someone dictating how your game's going before it's even started.
Which is why TOs will often set relatively neutral, a couple of big pieces spread out. You got a couple of small pieces, but there's never really one side that's overwhelmed or underwhelmed with, terrain and things like that. But Mikey, this has been awesome. I think we could talk for a long time despite... Oh, I've got one Bernal question. Yeah. I want to wrap this up, but I keep asking you questions. Last question, I swear, because I want to go to bed. The last question I've got for you is Big War. I think I asked you this question. We kind of alluded it. We didn't quite talk about it. If I was to take your exact list and run it into Big War, what are the pros and cons? Am I better off going Big War? Or is there something that Bonesplitterz gives me that I can't unlock in the Big War? Because it's going to allow me to bring in Iron Jaws, Cruel Boys. It gives me a really nice little soup force.
Yeah, so the minus the 4-up save, you get the 6-up save, but you don't get the big war 4-up. So you lose that denial. You lose the pre-game move in there. You lose the exploding hits. So I just don't think so. The maniacs no longer do what they need to do because you haven't got the exploding hits. The ball boys can't deny as well because you haven't got the big war, and then you can't deny slay the warlord in the same way. The +1 to hit, we're not looking to get into combat so much. We already got the +1s and the +1 to wounds, so I would say not for pure Bonesplitterz. It just doesn't make sense. And I have looked at Big War a lot because I've got an Iron Jaws army as well, just to try and see if there's game in there. But I do think you can get more out of it in the allegiances and Cruel Boys as well. I just don't think it's quite there.
So if you did a Big War, you would be able to plug some of your holes. Like, for example, you could bring in some Bolt Boys for some good shooting. You could bring in a monster like a Maw Crusher or some Gore Grunters and things like that, and have something that would complement your force or plug a hole. But would it make your list, which is obviously a controlled movement type list, any better? The answer is going to be no in your case. But that might not be true if you're building around melee troops or your shooting troops. So, but what I'm hearing is it certainly works in the style that you're playing.
Yeah, I think Wargog is something that you would pick up and play in a Big War from those, just because of that extra utility of the staring. But I don't think the others go into it very well.
Mate, as a Gits player, I would happily take a Wargog and put it into my list. Like you guys keep putting my Fungoid Cave Shamans in for the extra free CP. I'm going to take one back and get the Masked Stare with all my Gits. Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah. I think Trog was taking it in his Trogs list.
Yeah, if I can have Dobie as well as the Wargog. Okay, now we're cooking.
Yeah, do it. I'll take your shooters.
All right, well, shout out to the Bucks Wargaming Collective. You've shown the bum bag off. Anyone you want to shout out personally or say hello to before we bring this home?
I guess, Bucks Wargaming Group. Thanks to Dan and Steve, for setting that up. It's brought me into the journey I have into competitive wargaming. I also should be playing a bat rep with my Bonesplitterz on Madman Gaming coming up, so you'll be able to see, I guess, some of the things I spoke about in action. I think there's a few people looking for a Bonesplitterz bat rep because we don't have many of them there. You don't see many of them.
I don't think there's any list talking or things like that. So
Yeah.
it was nice. It only took me like 9 months since Age of Sigmar first come out, and a champion has risen. In fact, multiple champions, Mikey and Calvin, both easily could have jumped in this discussion and led us to the victory that is Bonesplitterz. And I'm glad we had this chat. I think we learned a lot, and I think most importantly, it's not all doom and gloom for the Savage boys. You know, are they the strongest? Are they going to be 5-0ing your next GT? Probably not. Are they an off-meta choice that you can build around and you can have a lot of fun with? Absolutely. Is there competitive builds in there? Yes. Will you have to work your ass off as opposed to people like me, like Sons, who just runs forward and goes burr? Yeah, you've got to work harder than I do. Mikey's not disagreeing with me. I work my ass off. Oh, mate. All right, let's drop off. You go do your thing. I go my thing. If you are actually, you know what I'd love to hear from the people who are listening to this, if you've gotten to the end, I want to know in the discussion below, tell me what's the best thing you have zapped off with your War Gold Prophet. I want to hear what you've zapped off. Be honest. Be really honest. What have you zapped off? Have you zapped off a Nagash or an Archaon or I wish you could do a Marathi, but you can't really until the end. That's a bit boring. But yeah, tell me in the comments. I want to hear what you've zapped off. I want to hear the best thing that people have zapped off. Cool. I think that's it. All right, let's wrap up. Bye, cool. Maggie. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining. And until next time, you know what to do. Thanks for sticking around until the end. I hope you found that video interesting and you walked away with a few new ideas.